Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us here today. It's wonderful to see so many researchers, product leaders, funders, and other members of our extended community. One of the dominant conversations in education right now is our reckoning with screens and digital media in children's lives. Families have been wrestling with this for years, and now schools are too, debating phones in classrooms, questioning ed tech, and asking whether the technology children spend time with is actually worth it. We think that scrutiny is healthy. We should expect high-quality learning experiences for all children. And if ed tech is going to earn a place in children's learning lives, what does it take to get there? That's a major focus for us at the Joan Ganz Cooney Center, where we work to ensure that media and technology for children are worthy of their time and attention. The Sandbox for Literacy Innovations is our most direct expression of that work today. We partner with product teams early in their development process when we have the greatest opportunity to bring research on how children learn to read into product development and invite children themselves into the design process as collaborators, not simply to validate what's already been built, but to help shape what gets built in the first place. One of the most rewarding aspects of our work is bringing together three groups that don't often have the opportunity to work closely together. Researchers understand how children learn, but they don't often get to collaborate with product teams when key design decisions are being made. Product teams move quickly and know their users, but they don't always have easy access to the evidence base. And children themselves have ideas that routinely surprise the adults in the room if we meaningfully include them in our work. The Sandbox is our platform for bringing these three groups into a productive working relationship. Over the past year and a half, we've done just that with organizations including Leapfrog, iCivics, and Khan Academy, members of our second cohort. Today, we want to share three things: what we've learned through a new research report on translating the science of literacy into product practice, how we work through our Co-Design with Kids toolkit, which is free for anyone to use, and what our partners have to say about the Sandbox experience and what our collaboration together produced. If what we share today resonates with you, we'd love to continue the conversation about how you can get involved too. And now it's my pleasure to turn things over to my colleague, Medha Tare, who leads the Sandbox.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. I am going to kick us off in just a moment here. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We're so excited to chat with you today about the Sandbox for Literacy Innovations. I'm Medha Tare, the Senior Director of Research for the Joan Ganz Cooney Center. And am going to be kind of emceeing our time together. I am so excited to welcome you all to this conversation. When you registered, many of you shared some of your favorite books, and we have some of them here today. And I just wanted to share this as a reminder that one of the reasons we're here is to make sure that all kids have and families have the opportunity to read books that bring them joy and enjoy the process and the experience. So that's our kind of mission and North Star, is to ignite that love of reading for all of our kids that we work with. During our webinar today, we will be learning a little bit about what the Sandbox entails and how the different components work together. So I'll share a little bit about that as we kick off. Then we're going to be hearing from our literacy experts to talk more specifically about how literacy research is integrated into product design and what needs to be done more there. We'll also take a deep dive into what it looks like to co-design with kids and share our wonderful new Co-Design with Kids toolkit. Finally, we'll have a conversation with three of our partners. Representatives from iCivics, Khan Academy, and Leapfrog are here with us today to talk about how this experience impacted their products. Finally, we'll share some resources and next steps and invite you to connect with us more. Okay. So before we jump into all of that, I want to take a moment to thank our amazing Sandbox team. You may not interact with all of these people, but we're all working hard behind the scenes. I won't go through everybody, but just know that from partnerships management and logistics, co-design expertise, literacy expertise, and then our wonderful comms team who helps bring all of this great work out into the world. We're so grateful for this amazing team at the Cooney Center. And then we also work with wonderful implementation partners. The Giant Room, you'll hear from Dr. Azi Jamalian later today, and her team at the Giant Room in here in New York City have been just incredible partners for us throughout this work. We're also working with Makefully in Kansas City, Missouri. So they've been a wonderful new partner for us as well as the YMCA of Greater New York have been just, incredible partners in helping us include diverse kids and families in our co-design experiences. And we're really grateful again to work so closely with all of these folks. So what is the Sandbox for Literacy Innovations? This current initiative is an extension of our broader Sandbox product lab, where we work with folks who are working on lots of different content areas, math, SEL, et cetera. We have a multi-year grant from the Walton Family Foundation, again, thanks to them, to really do a deep dive on literacy ed tech. And that can be products and technologies that are being used in the home or at school. And what we've created is kind of a multi-pronged consultancy model where we start with a deep dive on the literacy research. So whether it's science of reading for really early learners and phonics through adolescents, thinking about what do we need to support kids to build long-term reading comprehension skills. And that continues throughout the lifespan. We also think about the whole child as you design. So thinking about frameworks such as learner variability or universal design for learning, and how can they be embedded into product design so that the needs of diverse learners are considered. And throughout this work, we are typically working with early stage products. So some of the companies are small and some of the companies are big, but critically, they're all working at a point in their product design where there's a lot of open ideation happening. And so this is not an iter like small changes kind of part of your process. It's really where you have the capacity to make larger changes or shift the direction of a product based on what you're learning and hearing throughout this process. So we phase these sections in order to do that. And finally, the third part is planning and co-facilitating co-design sessions with kids in the target demographic. Again, we work with kids in pre-K through high school, and we work with them to understand, with the designers in the room, to understand what are the children's needs, what are their ideas and perspectives in product design. And we're really surfacing some wonderful insights from the kids, and the designers are learning a lot as well. To date, we've worked with, again, in the literacy focus that we've had, we've worked with 14 partners and counting. So we have worked with really early learners with Sesame Street and with Lit Lab and Leapfrog, as well as adolescent learners with Medley and Khan Academy, and everyone in between. We're really excited to share some examples of that work as well. I'm so excited to pass next to my colleagues Angelica DaSilva and Diane Gifford, who are our literacy experts. I will just add that we will, if you have questions for our speakers as you go, we won't have a lot of time for a live Q&A, so please use the question and answer box within Zoom, and folks can kind of answer questions through text as the webinar goes on. We also will be sharing a recording of the webinar, so you don't need to take a lot of notes if you don't want to, and just sit back and learn and enjoy. All right, thank you, Angelica and Diane.
Okay, thank you, Medha. Angelica and I have now worked, as Medha said, with 14 partners with products ranging from preschool to adolescence, and from foundational language and literacy skills to high school reading and writing. Our role in the Sandbox is to help ed tech teams strengthen literacy opportunities within their products. We do this through a 3 consultation process. And can we go? Yeah, thank you. We do this through a 3 consultation process, which is grounded in literacy research. Each consultation builds on a previous one as we work collaboratively with product teams to support their learning. So our first priority is to learn. In Consult 1, we begin by learning about the product itself, its goals, its target audience, and any current supports and challenges that the team might be having that they want us to focus on during the review process. And then between Consults 1 and 2, we review. We conduct a deep dive into the product using a research lens. We examine the reading and writing demands embedded within the product. We look at the accessibility and engagement that are supported and where opportunities exist to strengthen literacy development. We then meet with the team to share our initial findings and observations. This stage involves identifying actionable areas where literacy supports can be strengthened and discussing how opportunities align with the team's goal. These conversations help shape the final recommendations presented in Consult 3. So the final stage is recommend. In this Consult 3, we synthesize what we've learned and provide a refined set of research-based recommendations. The goal is not to redesign the product, but to identify high impact areas that can strengthen literacy outcomes where, while still remaining aligned with the team's visions, their goals, and any constraints they may have. And just a note, while we refer to a 3 consultation process, many of our partnerships continue beyond that point. Teams often come with new questions, evolving designs, and additional opportunities for feedback. Next slide, please. To guide these reviews, we use research-based frameworks for skilled reading and writing. An important framework for us is Scarborough's Reading Rope, which provides a model of skilled reading. This model reminds us that skilled reading develops through an integration of the ability to recognize words and to understand language. Notice the subcomponents under each. As we review products, we consider and then communicate how the product supports various and necessary aspects of skilled reading. This framework guides our work and gives us a visual to communicate how teams can maximize literacy development across multiple dimensions of reading. Next slide. We then take a similar approach when examining writing. This framework highlights that writing's not a final product. Writers move through planning and drafting and revising, editing as their ideas develop. What's interesting, though, is that few products are designed exclusively for writing. However, we often seek out intentionally and identify ways in which developers can incorporate writing into their products. Doing so has the well-documented benefit of deepening reading comprehension and strengthening literacy overall. Next slide. So these frameworks together also help address common misconceptions about the science of reading. As interest in reading science has grown, so too have a number of misconceptions about what is and what it's not. The science of reading, in fact, is a comprehensive body of interdisciplinary research that supports us in understanding how the brain learns to read and write. We have found that product teams come to the Sandbox with different levels of literacy expertise. Some will have a dedicated person who may have been a former teacher or literacy coach. Some may have individuals who have sought to keep up with the research as best they can. Some may have one-time advisors that have provided guidance, and some have no such person. As a result, it's not uncommon to see misunderstandings or incomplete interpretations of the research. Many of these are reflected in the misconceptions shown here and actually are discussed in our year 1 report that we'll look at later. One of our roles is to help teams navigate this by connecting product design to the broader research base and identifying opportunity to better support skilled reading and writing. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Angelica, who will talk to you more about research design translation gap.
Hello, everyone. Well, Diane just gave us an overview of what we know about reading development and some of our work with our partners. But the challenge is that translating this knowledge into technology, it's far from being straightforward, right? Literacy science has made a tremendous progress over the years, but we have a much smaller body of research focused on how all these principles are transferred within digital environments. So for example, we know that vocabulary matters. We know that comprehension requires more than decoding, but what should those ideas actually look like inside of an app, and what kinds of scaffolds should appear, when they should appear, how much support is enough? These are all design questions that current literacy research doesn't fully answer yet. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as we worked with our partners, which you're going to hear from some of them in a little bit, across different literacy products, we saw several themes emerge that led to the 8 recommendations that you see here on the screen. Now, these recommendations are less about individual features within those products and more about how teams approach the product development. Because of time today, I will speak very broadly just to highlight a few big ideas. But we certainly hope that you go into the report shortly and take a deep dive into the report itself. So first, one of the things that we recommend is that literacy tools should be grounded in what we know about reading and writing development, taking into account the full ecosystem rather than just fragmented skills. And even when designing for individual skills, we need to consider that that skill fits into a much broader developmental journey. A second area of recommendation is that literacy experiences should be authentic, engaging, and accessible. Products in general need to support diverse learners, right? We need to think of diverse learners and also recognize that teachers and caregivers are essential partners in the learning process. And finally, we recommend that products be built through collaboration and continuous improvement. And I want to emphasize that improvement isn't just about user feedback and engagement data. It's really about collecting evidence of validity and efficacy for the product. Now, especially for educational tools that are aimed for schools, we should be using educational standards and not marketing metrics to derive these insights, which is something that we see a lot. And just as importantly, these findings should be communicated clearly, accurately, and transparently with stakeholders as we go. So really, the biggest takeaway from our work so far is that we should move beyond creating just research-informed products and really towards creating research-integrated products. That's what we want to see in the field. Next slide, please. And I will end with an opportunity rather than a challenge here. Today, we know more about how children learn to read and write than at any point in history. But the bulk of our knowledge is really for in-person context. Now, as technology is increasingly mediating learning in classroom environments, we need foundational research that helps translate those insights into digital learning experiences. This work requires collaboration, as we talked before, among researchers, designers, developers, educators, but it also requires investment. We see substantial investment going into innovation and scaling of products, but we don't see the same amount of investment going into foundational research that informs those products to begin with. So if there's any funders in the room, we will happily keep this conversation going further with you. Especially now at a time where the research funding landscape is changing drastically and many scholars are exploring new funding pathways. We really have an opportunity here to intentionally direct some of these resources towards some of the pressing unanswered questions that we have in the field. Next slide, please. And here it is. I'll leave you with one final resource. This is our newly released report, which includes insights from our work with our partners and recommendations. We hope that you take a look and that it sparks some new ideas and conversations. Thank you for being part of this work. I'm now going to make room for my colleague, Leigh Guha, who's our Senior Fellow for Co-Design.
All right. Hello. I'm going to get started here. And I hope everyone can see me. I can't see me, but I'm sure you can. So hi, everybody. Let's go to the next slide, please. So my job today is to talk to you a little bit about our Co-Design with Kids Toolkit, which is another piece of this grant that we've been working on over the past couple of years. And this is now very excitingly, it's live. You can go see it. You can go play with it if you go to codesignwithkids.org. And in order to design this toolkit, our question was, what if someone wants to do co-design with kids and they can't get to see what a co-design with kids session looks like, or they're not near a university or a corporation who's doing it where they can go see how it's done. So our attempt is to have a toolkit out there where people can go and see how can I co-design with kids and get the resources that I need. So we started by talking with interviews with experts and interviews with potential users of the co-design toolkit. And we reviewed existing toolkits that were out there. And what we discovered was there was a lot that was kind of text heavy or academic. So we wanted to make something that was easily accessible. So we're going to go to the next slide and watch a quick video, which is one of the videos you could find on the toolkit. And we'll talk about what is co-design.
Leigh, give me 1 second. I might need to stop sharing and reshare with sound.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay. There we go.
Excellent.
Co-design is many things, a series of techniques and even a philosophy.
A subset of participatory design where you work with the target audience as design partners.
Creating something together as a team with a shared goal in mind.
Oh, perfect.
When we recognize as designers that we alone are not the sole people who should be contributing to the ideas.
You bring together everybody who's going to be involved with that product.
To have their voice and have agency and have the sense that they can contribute to the technology design process.
Helped me to design a game and how I want it to be.
Co-design is about participatory voice. It's about inclusivity. It's about how we change the world with many, many people's brains in a creative, elaborative way.
All right, so let's take a look at what the toolkit actually looks like if you go to it. So this is sort of an overview. There are three main sections to the toolkit. There's a few other things as well, but essentially there are three pieces: Co-Design 101, techniques, and case studies. So let's take a look at each one. Next slide, please. So this is going to be Co-Design 101. So these are more things like historical and philosophical underpinnings of co-design. And you'll see there's places where you can search for different topics like building relationships or idea elaboration. And then what we've done there is blown up. You can see the idea elaboration page. We tried to make each page not too text dense. Also, you can see on that one, there's a video. Many include photographs of actual sessions with children as well. Next slide, please. Our next section is techniques. This is where like most of the meat of this is. These are the techniques that you can really use in co-design sessions with children. So you can see we've blown up there low-tech prototyping, bags of stuff, and the format that's followed there, every technique has that same format. So you could go and be like, I just want to know what the supplies and preparation are. That section's on every one. You can also search where you see those squares. You can search by where you are in the process. Am I brainstorming? Am I iterating? You can search for techniques that you might want to use. Next slide, please. One thing we are often asked for, and we discovered in our interviews and in our reviews of what is out there, is that people want case studies. People want to know what has actually been created using co-design with kids. So on this page, you can find different technologies that have actually been created using co-design with kids. Some are from the Sandbox, some are from universities, some are from companies, but each one will walk you through a technology that has actually used co-design with kids in the design process. And on my next and almost last slide, we're going to share one more video just to give you an idea of the kinds of things you might be able to learn on the Co-Design with Kids toolkit.
Being an adult co-designer is very different than being a teacher or a researcher. As researchers, we're trying to ask questions and staying neutral to not influence the subject.
A lot of times being a teacher or being in a research project, you have very specific things that you're trying to do.
When you're in co-design, though, the thing that happens is that you actually have to become one of the child participants in some ways.
You need to be open and you need to be ready to sort of just roll with what happens.
Adults need to learn that perspective. They're not there to just sit back and relax. and let the children come up with ideas.
Do you contribute design ideas right alongside with the kids?
Bringing on our point of view, asking for their point of view, remixing and mixing ideas, pushing back, challenging.
I had to learn how to not just be the person that's observing or asking questions, but to be the person that's sitting alongside.
All right, so if you want to see the rest of that and many other videos about co-design with kids, please go on ahead to the website, and we'll go to the last slide that is going to land on a QR code for you to go there. Awesome URL, codesignwithkids.org. And what we're going to do now to continue the conversation about co-design is I'm going to pitch to my colleague Ozzy Jamalian. She's the CEO and founder of the Giant Room and our close collaborator in doing co-design with kids on this project. Ozzy.
Ozzy, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Manali, for your thoughtful overview of the Co-Design with Kids Toolkit. I'd like to take one step back and walk through the 5 phases of a co-design engagement with an industry partner. This is to emphasize that the impact of co-design doesn't begin when kids come to the session, and it doesn't end when the session is over. What happens before and after those moments can significantly shape the quality of the insights generated and ultimately the product that emerges. We typically begin with immersion and discovery. This phase is about understanding not only your product, but also your design philosophy, the decisions you've already made, the decisions that are still open, the design challenges you're trying to solve, and the goals you're trying to work toward. In the case of Sandbox for Literacy, we also conduct a deep review of the literacy recommendations that Angelica and Diane have put together for the product. This helps us to identify opportunities for improvement, but also ensuring that there's alignment between the product design and evidence-based literacy recommendations provided. We then take all these insights into consideration as we plan the co-design sessions with kids. Next slide, please. Here's the fun part. It's time to actually be in the room with kid designers. At this point, the number one and most important factor is building a trusting relationship with the children from the very beginning. Over the years, as we've worked with nearly 30 industry partners, we've learned that this relationship building is actually a two-way process. We need to ensure that both kids and adults feel comfortable designing together, and that requires 3 key elements. Next slide, please. First, designing experiences that eliminate any sense of hierarchy. Everyone goes by their first name. We all sit down on the floor. That's the number 1 requirement. Listening to music, doodle together, chat. These simple choices signal that everyone's ideas matter. We're all equal and we're all collaborators in this process. And I want to highlight that this is actually one of the ways co-design is different from traditional playtesting. In traditional playtesting, designers are often not even present in the room, or they deliberately avoid revealing their role to prevent introducing any positive bias or the subjects wanted to please them. In co-design, by contrast, designers participate openly as part of the group, and they help create a more collaborative and equitable environment where ideas can emerge and evolve together. Next slide, please. Second is embracing improvisation. This is really, really important. We build trust by creating the feeling that I can hear you, I'm here, I'm present, I can hear you, and you can hear me. I'm not sitting here simply to ask questions or take notes. I'm here to be in conversation with you, to share, critique, challenge, bounce back and forth ideas, build on each other's ideas, and remix ideas together. This is, again, another way that co-design is different from traditional playtesting. In playtesting, the researcher often tries to be a fly on the wall, observing how users interact with a product or a prototype of that product without much intervention. The goal is to understand how someone uses a product when there is no one present or to answer questions or to provide guidance. In co-design, though, the dynamic is fundamentally different. Researchers, designers, children, they all work together as collaborators, building on one another's ideas throughout the process. This is so rather than simply sitting and observing and asking questions, researchers actively participate in conversations and helping to create the environment where ideas can be shared, challenged, and expand collectively. And the third key component, next slide, please, is cultivating both a playful and an analytical mindset. We're there to play with ideas, get messy, experiment, laugh together, but at the same time, we take each other very seriously and encourage everyone to think analytically. And this is very tough to do it in person than to be said. You constantly need to think about, what am I learning? What assumptions are being challenged? What new possibilities are emerging as you try to be active and play and just make a mess with children. Next slide, please. When you're able to build these trusting relationship with kids, the impact extends for beyond that co-designing that one single session or that one single product. You create a lasting impact on the child in the room and also on the designer, often for years to come and well beyond one product they co-design together. We've heard from our partners that it shifts their design philosophy and the way they think about kids as they engage in designing new products or new features for their product. And with that said, I'm going to pass the mic to my colleague at Ganz Cooney Center, Alison Levy, to speak with some of our Sandbox partners. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So great to see you here. Thank you for joining, and thanks so much, Ozzy. It was such a joy to work with Taylor and Ben and Sarah as product partners in the Sandbox. So I am going to ask each of them to introduce themselves, and then we'll dig into a conversation to hear more about each of their experiences. So let's start our 2-minute introductions with Taylor. Taylor, if you can please introduce yourself and your product and share one reason that made you want to participate in the Sandbox, that would be great. And then we'll do the same for Ben and Sarah.
Hi, thank you, Allison. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Davis. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Content at iCivics. We are a nonpartisan civic education provider. We specialize in nonpartisan social studies instruction for students in grades K through 12. Our claim to fame has really been secondary social studies instruction, grades 6 through 12. And recently, in the last couple of years, we've been producing products for elementary school. We have a handful of videos, video games, and also supplemental lesson plans that are inquiry-based for elementary classrooms. And that is the work that actually brought us to the Sandbox. We received a planning grant to look at how we could plan a core curriculum for social studies instructions that would take a teacher from the beginning of the school year all the way to the end of the school year. And we knew doing that we wanted to build in literacy integration and cross-curricular integration into that curriculum. And it just so happened that we found out about the initiative for the Sandbox for Literacy at the Cooney Center. And we thought this would be a really great partner for us to work with that could really guide us in expert and informed ways of how to integrate literacy into our project. And so our project is still in its planning stages. It is not yet out for the public. We do have some elementary resources that are available, but this one is still in planning and development stages. It will end up being a K-5 social studies curriculum. It does not yet have a name, but it will be comprehensive. It will engage students in inquiry. So they'll be asking questions, answering questions, investigating sources, and collecting evidence and making claims. And we know that it's going to be supported by grade level texts, and that's going to have a background knowledge model built into it. And that's actually has been informed and has been being shaped by our work in the Literacy Sandbox. And so our co-design priorities coming into the Sandbox have been to figure out how we can best implement a model for background knowledge, to really explore how we can do purposeful tech integration so that those integrations for tech are helping students to comprehend and to process those sources and readings. And then that first and foremost is that we keep student engagement top of mind. How do we keep things fun? How do we keep them playful? And how do we keep them engaged? And with that, I will turn it next to Ben to introduce himself.
Well, thank you so much, Taylor. I'm Dr. Ben J. Miller. I'm an executive learning designer at Leapfrog Enterprises Incorporated. And there I integrate educational research and technology into the design of learning-focused toys, books, and games. A little bit about Leapfrog. Many of you are Leapfrog kids who are all grown up now. So Leapfrog Enterprises is a leading early learning company that creates those playful, research-informed experiences for children from infancy all the way through their early school years. Leapfrog was founded in 1995 and is now part of the VTech group. Leapfrog blends child development expertise, technology, and imaginative play into supporting meaningful learning at home. So we came to the Sandbox for Literacy Innovations because we're already exploring how digital reading supports in our online digital reading library on Leapfrog Academy can meaningfully scaffold kind of early literacy without being distracting. We had a lot of questions around that. So we had been researching things like word emphasis synced with audio, how pacing affects comprehension, and how simplifying illustrations can be better supports for emerging readers. And a core question for us was how to make these tools feel like empowering rather than intrusive. So we were really especially drawn to the Sandbox's focus on co-design. And at Leapfrog, we've long involved children throughout development, from observing early prototypes to testing near final builds, and running focus groups with both parents and children. What intrigued us about SLI was learning how to more intentionally focus on the co-design with our core age group, that 3 to 6 year old kind of range, and how to translate their great ideas into activities that would support reading skills. So now I'll hand that over to Sarah from Khan Academy.
Thank you. Great to be here. My name is Sarah Robertson. I am a principal product manager at Khan Academy, and I'm working on our newly founded language and literature team. I think many people, when they hear of Khan Academy, they associate it often with math and science, but our mission has always been to provide a free resource for anyone to learn anything. And so far at Khan, much of my work on the language and literature team has been focused on building tools for secondary writing practice. And right now, with help from the Sandbox, we are diving into some reading practice products. And we knew in particular that we wanted to build a new kind of reading experience that prioritized grade level text, but also offered personalized scaffolding supports for readers of varying skill levels. And we were really excited to work with literacy experts on this. We knew that one of the risks that we might face would be overcomplicating the reading experience with too many ed techie bells and whistles. And we also really wanted to collaborate with students to make sure that what we were designing was something that would reduce some of the overwhelm of reading complex texts and also building motivation to tackle those challenging passages. So through the Sandbox, we have really developed a much stronger vision of this product that we're currently calling Comprehension Coach. It's kind of a companion to our existing Writing Coach product, with a planned beta release for sometime around this fall. And the product allows teachers to co-design an interactive experience for students around a grade level reading passage, featuring a short pre-reading activity, a simple during reading experience with scaffolds, and a short but interactive post-reading activity, all which will flow into teacher insights. And the intention with the co-design session, with working with the Sandbox here, was to really strike a balance between student agency and appropriate scaffolds. So we really worked with Angelica and Diane on some of those challenges, as well as I mentioned, opportunities to build in engagement and motivation and make the reading experience fun for kids.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was great to hear the background from each of you. Let's dig in a little more. And Taylor, I'm going to start with you. We just had our debrief call to go over the report with you and your team that shared the findings and insights and design recommendations after your Sandbox experience. And there were so many great examples of design ideas that bring the humanity of the kids in the room to the forefront, including, for example, the idea of kids who lack background knowledge on a topic. And you had shared that if you hadn't had that Sandbox experience, you wouldn't have built a system that incentivizes tending to learning. Can you share a couple of examples that came out of the co-design sessions that turned into priorities for iCivics?
Yeah, this was a really unique experience for us because it put us in connection with students to talk about how they wanted to build background knowledge, how they wanted to remember it, how they wanted to recall it. And had we not had this experience with students, we would not have been able to build in a lot of the ideas that came out of that co-design session that were very student and kid centered and focused, and also focused on keeping like playfulness and fun into the project as well. And so for us, one of the ideas that came out in our session was this idea of tending to a garden of background knowledge. We were specifically asking students on that day how they wanted to remember background knowledge, how they wanted to recall it. And they came up with this idea of a garden. And for facts that you could recall, concepts that you could recall, you could either get certain kinds of seeds to plant in your garden to grow different things, or you could get certain kind of resources. Like maybe you remembered something and you got some water. You were able to recall something and you got some sunlight. And in that way, your garden was able to grow. And so as the Giant Room team went through and really analyzed our sessions and the feedback that came out, a couple of things emerged. One was that we needed to really just make sure that we were attending to the playfulness and motivation and engagement for students. And I was sharing with my team earlier as we were reading through our report, we tend to look at things and we go, oh, what source is going to engage them the most? What piece of like historical knowledge or event is really going to capture their attention? We probably would not have gone into this experience coming out with an idea of a garden or tending to knowledge in this kind of playful way had we not been able to get in front of kids and to hear directly from them. The other thing that this idea really showed for us was this idea of feedback for students. If you're tending to a garden of background knowledge, you're able to see which of your seeds are growing, which of them are sprouting, what might be withering, what do you need to tend to and to care to. And that really resonated with us because what we heard from teachers as well is that learning is a process, and we all know this, right? But being able to show that to students that you don't learn overnight, you don't all of a sudden pick up knowledge in one lesson. It takes time, and it's time over time. And so how do you really how do you care to your own knowledge network was a really just powerful metaphor that arose directly from the students for us to show us how we could build these kind of visual supports, but also momentum and engagement and motivational supports into our product.
Well, thanks so much, Taylor. I see somebody in the chat is asking about this. Sarah, if you could talk a little bit more about your experiences working with Angelica and Diane and how that collaboration affected the product and the pedagogy behind it.
Yeah, sure. So I am a former middle school ELA teacher, so I consider myself, somebody who understands best practices in ELA instruction, but I'm also not like reading the latest in every single study in literacy research every single week. So they have been invaluable resources for us, especially around some of the really tricky design problems that we have encountered in trying to approach this reading product. An example is striking a balance between best practices and flexibility. So, wanting to support teachers with the kinds of reading passages they want to teach, or giving students opportunities for choice, while also making sure that kids are reading on grade level passages and that we're not over scaffolding for some kids, under scaffolding for other kids. So how do we build in that flexibility and that choice without putting too much work on teachers and without, having to rely on maybe students making all those decisions about scaffolding themselves? That was really, really helpful. So they helped us, for example, figure out a best approach to pre-teaching vocabulary, doing like glossing words and text as students are reading. Another thing that they really helped us continually remember is not to interrupt students too much, to like make sure that they are keeping the flow of reading intact, and that students are getting an opportunity to like really enjoy the text without, a lot of different interruptions. And yeah, even just relying on them for like the smallest, most random little questions that we have, like, what is the latest in like context clues and, teaching word roots. And they just will, send me an email to a link to the latest study on that, or just help us kind of figure out the best approaches to some of these challenges.
So much, Sarah. And Ben, bringing it over to you, you are the furthest out of the most intense part of the partnership around your original digital library of the Leap Reader books. What insights are you taking forward from the co-design and the literacy consultations into the development of your newest products?
Well, when we brought our digital library into the co-design process, it really revealed this gap between what we think is intuitive and how preschoolers actually experience digital reading. And so we saw kids struggle with these UI patterns that felt really obvious to us. And we wanted to reinforce the need for more developmentally appropriate scaffolds and more intentional introduction to those tools, while also providing them with a sense of control, but not just through a bunch of like options of tools and UI and things like that. They really did best when they had meaningful agency with a small, clearly defined set of choices. So this shaped how we updated kind of those existing titles and really designed new ones. We found that, kids were most engaged when interactions responded to their input with like sound or motion, especially when that stuff felt like a little playful and even a little silly. So we really leaned into that. And so we used that to then kind of develop these reading skill activities that work best when they're lightly guided and while using prompts or animations to help kids know what to do without taking over. And that informed this whole new series of Leap books on Leapfrog Academy that launched earlier this year. These books are really great because they model how to use tools like hearing phonemes and sounding out words, framing them as like helpers that kids can use if they get stuck, but they can also read on their own as they build up that proficiency. So the design itself is intentionally simplified with minimal instruction to support their focus on text, and interactive supports that are introduced gradually through these really nicely child-paced tutorials. So the whole experience feels really empowering and not overwhelming.
Great concrete examples, all of you shared. Thank you. I'm going to do one more question and open it up to all of you. Our co-design toolkit just launched. You've been through the sandbox. Are there any plans that you have to extend what you learned or the resources in the co-design toolkit to extend these methodologies into the future within your organization?
I'll take that one, or share a little bit. Yes, at our organization, we're actually actively thinking about how we can build elements of co-design into more of our product development. And so, for instance, we're going to get started looking at data literacy as a project internally. And we're thinking about how we can build in co-design elements with students and with teachers into that product. I think from this experience, we've seen the real benefit of having student-centered ideas really shape and inform what it is that we do. Our organization tends to talk a lot with teachers, and that is a really great and valuable way for us to shape our products and make sure that they're meeting teachers' needs and through teachers' students. But it's another piece to be able to hear directly from students and to get those ideas that are initiated from them. It adds a whole nother element to what it is that you produce. And at the end of the day, our products, though they are found by teachers and used in classrooms, right, they're going to students. So it gives a really added benefit for us. And we're really excited and grateful to the Cooney Center to have had this experience and really excited to start shaping it and passing it on within our organization as well.
Yeah, I got to echo a lot of that. We felt like the toolkit was really validating, but also like generative. It was validating because it reinforced a lot of these instincts we developed over the years for designing with children, but it also was generative because it gave us this clearer structure for working intentionally with kind of our core demographic and working with them, right? They're the designers with us. And what stood out most was that it kind of balanced this open exploration with just enough guidance to help kids express their ideas and translate those into real design decisions. And we already have plans in place to extend these methodologies. We're inspired by what we learned to apply these to new digital learning innovations, and we're going to have plans to run 3 co-design sessions at Leapfrog this month using our Kid Lab. So it really feels like this great integration of the Sandbox tools, our internal expertise, and really want these practices to ripple beyond just the small group that was there in New York, and so that co-design becomes like a shared, scalable approach within our company.
Yeah, I agree with all that's been said. I think Khan Academy, at least the team that I'm on, has a tendency to focus on like teachers and, learning from teachers and making sure that we are building products that are going to be easily discoverable and appealing to teachers. But working with students is such a different experience, and it was so cool, specifically in the area of designing engaging and motivating experiences, which, you can have a whole bunch of adults in a room guessing at what a student would find fun, especially with middle and high school kids. I feel like it's a lot harder for us to keep up with what would be engaging for your kids that age. So I am really excited to continue the work of, working directly with students on a lot of these different design challenges and continuing to make Khan Academy more fun for kids to learn.
Thank you all. There are so many great questions going on and conversations in the chat, and I would encourage participants to check out the toolkit, check out the recently released report, and also our blog. The Cooney Center website we'll put in the chat has a lot of deeper dives into all of these partnerships and what co-design looks like at the different stages of product development and with different ages. I thought there was just a question about that. So thank you all. That was fantastic. And I'm going to pass it back over to Medha.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's a couple of questions in the chat that I'll see if I can answer. Somebody asked about the process of bringing students into co-design sessions at the ground level. So I think Ozzy I answered some of this in her responses, but bringing, working closely with our implementation partners, including the Giant Room and the YMCAs, to really invite kids and families who are in the demographics that the target population. So, for example, recently one of our product partners was interested in working with multilingual learners and families. So we invited our school partners to talk to the families that they thought might be interested and share this opportunity with them. And we were able to get a great group of 5 to 6 families who were able to do the after school sessions for 3 afternoons in a row and share their insights that way. So it really has been an organic process to build relationships in our community and make sure that, again, as Ozzy mentioned, building those trusting relationships has been key to making sure that we are serving all of the participants, so not just the product and the designers, but also the kids and families who participate. Okay, let me put up our last slides here. And folks can continue to ask questions in the chat and answers. Some folks have been asking about working with us. So this is a very minimal interest form. If you have a product that you're working on that you think these methodologies may benefit, and again, it's in that sort of early stage that I discussed, please fill out this form and share your information with us, and we will go through and try to get back to you as soon as we can on whether there's a good match there. And we'll put that link in the chat as well. And we also have our Cooney Center newsletter, which we hope you all sign up for and keep following along. We are posting additional case studies on our toolkit website. In fact, our comms manager Ashley just posted one this morning for Lurvana Labs. So we're adding new examples of co-design there as we have them. And so that's a great way to also see more examples of how products have actually been impacted by co-design. Our blogs are also another great way to see some examples, some deep dives of what the literacy consultations look like and what the co-design actually looks like. We have some really nice examples on the website as well. So I will pause here. If folks have additional questions, we can maybe take a couple of minutes to answer any additional ones if folks want to come back on. Okay, let me take a look here since we have a couple minutes. All right. Ozzy, do you see any that you want to jump in on?
I answered some of them.
Okay.
Where did it go?
Oh, okay. This is an interesting one. Ozzy or Mona Leigh, can you share some strategies, principles you implement to ensure child safety, physical and emotional, throughout the co-designing process, especially given your focus on creating equitable learning environments?
Yeah, absolutely. I just saw that one, so I was gonna hop in, and then Ozzy, definitely your opinions on this would be that very valuable as well. On the not to pitch it again, but on the co-design toolkit, we do have there is a part called adult roles in co-design, which talks about some of this, which is yes, in the design part, you are equal partners in contributing your ideas, but you are also still the adult in the room. So you do have to keep in mind things like you are sort of ultimately in charge of things like, the safety of the room and the safety of where you are and those sorts of things. And just being aware of how the children are on any given day, how your co-designers are functioning. Because I know we all work with co-design kids over time, you start to learn the children and sort of what their cues are. I will say there's also power in a co-design session. You typically have a higher ratio of adults to kids. So you are more able to sort of devote maybe one adult to helping a child who's having a particular issue or challenge that day. Pass it to Ozzy there.
Yeah, great question. A couple of key strategies we use for physical. Again, because we don't want to have lots of don't and you can do this, you cannot do that. We really think about the height. If there is a material or if there is a type of scissor or anything that a 3-year-old should not be able to reach, we put it somewhere that they cannot reach it. If it is a material that you can reach, that means that you are hopefully safely are able to reach. And those like really detailed consideration of the space design will help you to transform it of like the space will basically do the work for you. In terms of the emotional, we try from the very beginning, like make it very okay and common to say pass if you don't want to talk or if you don't want to share to a support to basically have a support of an adult that try to get close to you and have a body with you if you get comfortable with working with one adult together in a one-on-one rather than to work in a larger group. And also sometimes, especially with younger kids, we let them play. If they're not comfortable, be part of the session, we'll let them play and we let them to be comfortable and then they come to join. Especially during the first session, it's all about creating that emotional safety for them.
And also the model that we use is we're working with the same group of kids over multiple consecutive days. So it's a lot about building relationships, building trust. And then also to build on what Ozzy was just saying, it's also about reading the room and making sure, if there's a kid who's shyer, making sure their voice is an opportunity to be heard. If one technique is not going as planned or an activity, being flexible and shifting.
Yeah, one person had asked, and I think Monali had answered, how do you engage kids who might struggle to share thinking and preferences verbally? So we always have drawing materials. The idea is not to force them to write their answers down. Like they can express their ideas however they want to, and the adults in the space will help them document that, right? So one of the kids that we worked with a couple of years ago said, this is not like school at all, right? So he felt like he was more open to share his ideas. We were not testing them. We're not trying to give them a score in any way. So that the point is to elevate their ideas and co-create rather than have them do it in some specific way.
Yeah, there is a fantastic part, again, of the co-design toolkit. Ozzy has a really good way of conceptualizing like what it is to think like a researcher, a teacher, a co-designer, and like how those things are different. And exactly what Medha just said, when you're working with a co-design child, I was a teacher first. That was my first job. So I had to unlearn always wanting to teach a child something and to learn that what I was doing was co-designing with them. So yeah, doing that helps to answer questions of like, they don't need to write. It's about those design ideas. It's not about teaching them something. It's about the design ideas together.
And thank you, everyone. You were wrapping up. I'm just going to put the link in the chat again for the interest form. Feel free to respond to that. We'll send the recording out as well as all of these links again. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Bye.